antlers, assumptions, and artillery. Mangowa clicks her robotic pincer in disappointment as the automated defenses pick up the bird boy, flying over town and easily track him. They fire and pass right through. Illusion? Clever, but he's still announced his... The anti-air defenses are then torn to shreds, and the easternmost bunker has the front door suddenly slammed open when a high-powered laser blast melts the locking mechanism, and the guards in the building are being reduced to component elements by point-blank laser bombardment. All that in the span of about 2.5 seconds, as one of the 3 buildings she can be in is being reduced to a ruin at a rapid pace. Mangowa taps her chin a bit as she smiles. So he likes to bait out his targets and then hit them hard and very, very fast. The numbers of enemies for him to fight drops like a stone, and he clears out that first bunker in just a few more seconds. Tosses the place, scratches and scores all the walls looking for secret passages, and then slams out of the bunker, setting about half the forces that had been gathering to ambush him on fire, and leaving a trail of blood, pine, and death so wide his wings wouldn't even brush the sides, reaching the second bunker. Then he melts the lock to her bunker, kicks the door in so hard it kills the enemy right behind it, and he opens up with his laser to melt some girls. But they're adapting with energy shields. It reminds them that his talons have brutal nails on the end, and he has no issue getting them bloody. He uses the dying body of an opponent to brace the landing, while he transfers his burst laser rifle into his wings. They're not as dexterous as his talons, but he has a thumb near the first joint, and he can use them generally like hands, and can still get a thumb to squeeze the trigger and unleash bursts of shifting laser pain. Mangowa merely stands up and waits beside the door as the trail of carnage and laser blast gets closer and closer, and Jacob blasts through the door, hosing the room down with laser fire at stomach level, and before he can bring it to Mangowa's position, her robotic pincer lashes out and snaps the weapon in 2. She then has to dodge him instantly using the weapon halves as clubs, and as she gets some distance, he throws them and then pounces at her with his talons swinging fast and hard. No words, just action. He doesn't taunt or talk as he shifts up his innumerable attacks to try and find a way through her defenses. His wings batter at her. His claws swing and rend through the air as she starts to find the pattern, and the screech of a hummingbird hits her like a battering ram, and she can feel it reverberating in her bones. She flinches by reflex, and he uses one talon to perch on her robotic pincer as his other grabs her face. But he's forgotten her tail in his flurry, and it slams into him, breaking his grip and driving him to the ground. Full credit to the man, he bounces back, and damn near literally as he rises up again. But she's back in balance, and her robotic pincer is around his neck and slamming him back down again as her tail stabs the floor so close to his face that the stinger brushes his cheek. He goes still, then limp. "Fuck, I got close, though," he says as she lets him go and withdraws her tail. He pops up again in an instant. "You did. You're fast, and you've got a good strategy of baiting out your enemies and then hitting them as fast and as hard as you can. But its weakness is that if anyone knows you're coming or can see what you're doing, they've got time to get themselves ready to deal with the chaotic hell of your flurries. Although holding back the power screech was a good move. Full marks on that. So the verdict is? For hitting an entrenched enemy position, you don't need anything. You've got a good strategy, but the question of infiltration is next. Infiltration as in disguises. Fake joining or sneaking in?" he asks. "Yes." She answers as she brings out her communicator and uses it to set up the next test. The holochamber shifts around them, and they're on the outer balcony to an arcology, complete with a garden nearby. Just inside is a large cluster of rooms you need to get into without tripping the alarm. They know who you are. They know you're coming, and I don't care how you get in. Get in and then out without anyone knowing you were there. That said, she walks off and he starts to follow before pausing at the shake of her head. He then crosses his wings and considers for a moment before his eyes fall on the garden. He smirks at the sight. Before Mangowa can even settle down on the comfy chair, in the hidden chamber, the door opens again and a strange Pavorus enters. There were no Pavorus programmed into the simulation. "Well, damn! So what's the next part, miss?" he asks as he comes all the way in. The blue and green look around him, shifts a bit, and the clothing suddenly looks mussed up. She can see he's doing things with the axiom, and if she squints, the disguise becomes somewhat transparent. It's not the thing that'll pass scrutiny, but strippers rarely get checked before being waved in. "You need to leave with me. I won't resist," Mangowa says, and he snorts as he walks up to her, hauls her upright, and then leads her out while leaning on her with a dopey smile. The holograms give out catcalls and whistles, and Mangowa notices that he's cast a bit of an illusion over her as well. She looks like one of the guards and has to resist laughing as she's walked out of the holding zone to the cheers of the guards who are supposed to stop that. "Okay, time out," she says, pulling out her communicator. "That's a pass, but how do you do it when you can't use copious amounts of man-ass to get where you want?" The almighty bulge then comes in clutch. He jokes and she snorts hard. "No, we're doing this again, but this time they're completely uninterested in men. So I have to get the fake breasts then?" The concept of shame is foreign to you, isn't it? Only in the sexual sphere, he says, and she slowly looks at him. "Have you been—" "I've spoken to psychologists, yes, before I even joined up with the Undaunted. Apparently, I'm using apathy to gain emotional control of my life," Jacob says with a shrug. "Not the healthiest, but so long as I don't do something stupid, it won't make it worse. I'd be a hypocrite if I told you to get help. So long as it doesn't get worse, I have little to complain about," Mangowa states, and Jacob shrugs. "So we doing this again or what?" he asks. "So, the games begin," Bjorn notes as Lil saunters up. "They do indeed. Tell me, big human. Do you feel fear?" she teases as she sidles right up against him and tries to press him back. Not happening, but it does press her breasts into him as she smiles up at him from below. "Not of you," he answers as he reaches down and gets a full grip of meaty thigh in each hand as he picks her up and places her on his shoulder. "So what's the evil scheme today?" "Oh, absolutely diabolical, completely cunning and savage to the bone," Lils exclaims before shifting and clinging to his back. "I'm going to spend so much time with you that you'll forget you were ever not with me." "Oh, really? We're going to grow so comfortable together that nothing will separate us." "Ha ha ha," Lils exclaims, and Bjorn huffs in amusement. "And where do we start with that?" Bjorn asks, and Lils paused. "Didn't think that far, did you?" "Well, maybe I did. You don't know otherwise." "I'm pretty sure I do." "Nuh-uh. Really? We're really doing that?" he asks. Everyone always forgets that the avian races have powerful talons. Even if they just saw them used in combat, they forget about them again. It's such a weird phenomenon. Granted, if you have wings to fly with, why bother gripping onto the ceiling? It's a fair thought pattern, sensible really, but being stealthy is about moving in the places no one thinks to look. And with the guards warned that a flyer is coming, no one expects him to slowly climb his way in and cling to the ceiling like a demented spider. It's slow, it's uncomfortable, and when he slips in and gets into the building itself, Mangowa is outright hiding her mirth. "So how do you plan to get me out?" "Working on it," he says as he rushes around, and then pauses. He then cuts a strip of cloth out of the back of the chair she's in and uses a smaller, thinner strip to turn it into a little bag. He then starts to shift the axiom. "All right, get in the bag." "You must be joking," she says, and he starts to stalk forwards as he starts raising up the bag to shove over her head. "No, that's a direct order." He pauses for a moment and considers. "Then how am I supposed to finish this?" "Not my problem, but you're not going to be shoving me into a sack," she says, and Jacob sighs as he thinks a bit, paces around, and then his eyes light up. He unravels the bag, starts channeling axiom into it in a strange way, and then tears it in half before tying one half around the wrist of her organic claw. "What now?" "I've never done this before," he says. "That's encouraging," she notes. "Basically, I'm going to try and use a recall effect on you after I sneak out, teleporting you to me. Never done this before, so if it—" Jacob begins to explain, and then trails off when she snips the band around her wrist and has it fall to the ground. "You're not being very helpful." "I'm not supposed to be helpful. I'm supposed to be rescued by you," she says, and he gives her a glare as he starts to pace and consider again. "You know what? Fuck it. he says, and he goes right for Mangowa, who has to restrain herself from hitting him as he tackles her with his shoulder to her stomach and lifts her up. He then starts bending the axiom to hide them both. It won't pass muster close up, and it will be painfully obvious that something is there. But she's found the ends of his patience, and he just barely stops himself from booting down the door to the outside as he leaves. He does, however, run away at a dead sprint away from the guards, and then as he clears the area, he starts to put her down and then pauses and turns her around on his shoulder. "So, what's next?" "Next you put me down," she states. "Are you sure? We wouldn't want to offend your dignity now, would we?" Jacob asks and gets conked on the top of his head with her tail. Thankfully, the stinger is turned the other way. What was that? Did you simulate flies in this hollow chamber?" "All right, that was the last warning," she says, and her tail whips the other way to use as an anchor as she suddenly grabs him and pulls to get him off balance with intent to slam him and assert her authority. His talons stretch out and dig into the ceiling to give him a place to balance, and it becomes a tug of war as to whose grip is better. One that's decided in her favor as the ceiling tiles give way under his talons and leave him nothing to work with, meaning he gets slammed despite his best efforts and she fully pins him. "Okay, kiddo, you got fire. Lots of it. Maybe too much. You're fast, you like solving things fast, and you hate unexpected problems. So that's what I'm going to teach you. You're tactical, you're clever, and you're mean. Exactly what's needed, but you need to learn fucking patience. I have patience. I can wait out decades for revenge. Different kind of patience. You were working your way in and breaking your enemies bit by bit without them knowing. If you had taken the time to do more than take a few glances at the guards, you would have found at least 3 gaps in their patrols and watch. That's what you were supposed to use. Love the audacity, and the sass is in its own class. But you need to calm your tits and be more willing to just perch and watch. You have good answers to most problems, but you'll get better ones if you get it through this mass of solid bone to wait a little," she says, tapping him on the head near the end to emphasize her point. "That's great. Can you get off me now?" "You know what? No, it's been too long since I had a feather mattress." "Get off. Stay down for 5 minutes. That is a direct order." "The fuck? Patience, learn some," Mangowa states, and he lets out the strange, high-pitched and gurgling noises of a hawk growling. "Patience, boy. It's 10 minutes now."